lips and says to me, "Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. For now the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come. And the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree puts forth its figs, and the vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away." Hear what the Spirit is saying to God's people.
Thanks be to God.
A reading from the first letter of Peter. Since therefore Christ suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves also with the same intention. Whoever has suffered in the flesh has finished with him, so as to live the rest of your earthly life no longer by human desires, but by the will of God. Hear what the Spirit is saying to God's people.
Thanks be to God.
The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not be afraid, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purses for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Be dressed for action and have your lamps lit. Be like those who are waiting for their master to return from the wedding banquet, so that they may open the door for him as soon as he comes and knocks. Blessed are those slaves whom the master finds alert when he comes. Truly, I tell you, he will fasten his belt and have them sit down to eat, and he will come and serve them." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Well, we're talking about Clare of Assisi today. She is perhaps not as well known as her fellow townsperson, Francis of Assisi. They overlapped in their lifespans. He was older than she was, but they had a lot in common. They both came from the same family background. They were wealthy families, and both of them rejected wealth. They rejected ownership of anything. And it's interesting to see how their lives played out. They were somewhat different. But Clare doesn't get a lot of attention, but she is, in many ways, a model for us. Maybe not in the way she lived, but in what she was seeking. Because she was trying to talk to Jesus, to have a relationship with him, and to listen to what he had to say. So, I think we might not choose the way that she lived, but she gives us a lot to think about. So I'm not going to talk about Clare first, I'm going to talk about myself, because I am so interested. That's a joke. And about my driving to and from Sierra Vista, which is also fascinating. I live in Tucson right now. And last Wednesday, I was here. Mark can attest to that. And anyway, I left to return to Tucson. It's about an hour and 20-minute drive. There's usually no traffic, and it's pretty peaceful. And I enjoyed it. I like to just drive and go into my own little world, whether I'm listening to music or a radio station or, nothing. A lot of times it's just me and my fascinating thoughts. So I'm driving along, and I enjoy that. So it's kind of like escaping from the world. It's like kind of becoming a recluse for an hour or so. Now, Clare was a recluse for most of her life. It wasn't just an hour a day, or 2 hours a day. Clare was born in 1194. She died in 1253, and yesterday was her official feast day. She was born and raised in Assisi, just like Francis was. I think they must have known each other, or their families knew each other. I don't know for sure, but they were in such similar socioeconomic groups that I have to think they did. And as we know, Francis renounced the world, which put him at odds with his family. And there's that famous episode where he's arguing with his father, and he finally just tears off all his clothes and stomps off to his monastery, or the church, or whatever. So that was pretty exciting. That was a pretty final statement. Now, Claire did not do that. Okay? But she had been listening to Francis preach, and she realized that rather than doing the acceptable thing for her, which probably would have meant getting married, having children, living this very comfortable life in upper classes of Assisi, she didn't want any of that. And she didn't want to have to be attached to stuff, to worry about stuff. So she went to Francis, and I think she essentially asked him to kidnap her, to get her away from her family, so that she could live the same kind of life he was living. And he did that, and her family, especially her father, was not happy, but that's what happened. And she ended up, he took her to a convent somewhere, and then eventually he renovated this dilapidated building in Assisi, and that's where she started her order, which is a Franciscan order for women. And two of her sisters came, and eventually, after her father died, her mother came to live there as well. But she lived in a really kind of run-down building. Even for the standards of that time, they didn't have, anyway, certainly didn't have air conditioning. I don't know if they had running water, I really don't know, but she wanted to live a life where she didn't have to worry about any things. And it was important to her that her order not own anything. So they didn't own the building, they didn't own any of their possessions, they begged, they did menial work to just stay alive. But their version of staying alive was pretty much, I would have trouble, let's say, put it that way. They ate once a day, they slept on twigs on the floor, and it was pretty yucky. I can imagine a lot of insect companionship going on there. And it was kind of scary. And the women did not leave their convent, except on important occasions. So they stayed there, and their job was to pray and to listen to Jesus, and to listen to what Jesus said to them. And that was all they did. Now that's a big job, actually praying for the world, for people, etc. But it's not something I think all of us are called to. Like, I can do an hour and a half in the car, but I can't do the rest of my life sleeping on the floor and not see people. So anyway, but that's what she did. And that's what she did her whole life. She died at the age of 59. She was made a saint 2 years later. So she probably was someone that people came to visit, to talk to hear her wisdom. But she didn't go out much. Okay. So anyway, I would say that she seems to have left a very small footprint on the world. Okay, so let's go back to that drive, that ultra interesting drive from Sierra Vista to Tucson. So I'm driving along, and there's a part where you leave, I don't know, you get on the 90 and you go north, and you kind of leave civilization. It's before you get to Sonoita, and it's before you get to the southern Tucson area. And it's at that point that one of the things that I occasionally worry about happened, which is that my tire light went on. I thought, oh, okay, well, and I didn't feel anything. The car wasn't, or doing anything annoying. So I thought, well, okay, I'll just keep driving. I'll slow down, but I'll keep driving until, I find civilization, because this doesn't count. There's nothing. So I'm driving along, and it continues, and it gets a little funnier sounding, and I'm starting to bite my nails. But anyway, I finally made it to Howland Street? Howland Road? Road, there we go. Okay. I got there and I thought, you know what, this is not working. I need to get off. And hopefully I can get to a gas station or something, because I can see buildings. So there's civilization out there. Well, I got on the off-ramp, and at that point the car just went, so the tire was totally flat. So I pull off, and there's a lot of detail, but I pull off the side, I'm still on the off-ramp, but I'm off of it, on the gravel. And I'm sitting here, and I'm not upset, which is unusual, because I like to be in control. So, I want to know what's happening. I've got plans for the afternoon. I'm going to do this and that. And I'm just, okay, here I am. I'm going to call AAA, and they're going to come change my tire, and off I go. So I get onto my phone, and I call AAA, and you're never talking to a person these days. It's always some, you punch in your number or whatever, so I do all that stuff. And I finally get to the help line. I have a tire problem, and I get this voice, which is a British woman's voice. Why would they have an English woman's voice talking to someone in southern Arizona? Well, I don't know why that was desirable. It was just funny. It completely distracted me. So I'm talking to this woman's voice, and I'm trying to explain where I am. And please, may we use your cell phone to find where you are? Well, sure. Anyway, so I'm totally focused on this, and I am oblivious to the fact that this truck has pulled up in front of me, and it's stopped. And it's a big truck. It's a pickup with the two wheels on each side of the back. Whatever you call those? Okay, yeah, anyway, that's like a serious truck to me. And this man gets out and walks over to me and says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yes." So I hang up on AAA, and he looks at the tire and says, do you have a spare? And I have one of those toy tires here in the back. So he changes my tire for me, just right there. And he's really quick. He didn't like the fact that Honda has a pretty crummy jack. And I'm really glad I didn't have to try to figure it out, because my mechanical knowledge and abilities aren't such. But anyway, so he changes the tire. So I chat with him, and find out his name is Mark. And I said, "Do you do this a lot? Because this is really wonderful. Most people don't do this sort of thing." And he said, "Yeah, I try to help people when I can." And then he said, a lot of people think this is kind of weird, but I want to tell you that Jesus told me to stop and help you. And I thought a lot of things, but anyway, he just finished changing a tire, and I said thank you, and he got in his truck, and off he went. He was going to see his son. So, I have to say that I believe that his primary purpose for being there was not to change my tire, although I am very grateful for that. And he did point me to a tire store on Houghton, where I went and got 2 tires replaced. But I think he was there to tell me that he talked to Jesus. And he listened. Jesus talked to him. That was why he stopped. I would have waited maybe another half an hour for AAA, whatever. But he came to give me that message, and he was sent by Jesus. Now, what is the message? The message is that Jesus pays attention to us all the time, even when we have a flat tire. That was just the opportunity for him to talk to me. But if we talk to Jesus and we listen to what Jesus says, our lives are going to be a whole lot better, aren't they? This was like a 10 or 15 minute interlude out of my life instead of an hour or 2. But that wasn't the point. So here we are talking about Clare of Assisi, who goes into this convent, sleeps on the floor with bugs and mice and who knows what. And she's talking to God. And here's somebody who's what we would call a householder, I guess. He's got kids, he's obviously got a job, he's got this big truck that, does stuff, and he can change a tire. And he talks to Jesus too. So it doesn't matter what we do, does it? We do what we need to do. For Clare, it was sealing herself up in this convent. We do what we need to do, and we listen to Jesus. Because Jesus will always talk to us. And I think that's why he stopped. Because I was thinking, what am I going to say about Clare? But that's really not the point. She didn't live a very interesting life. No offense, Clare. But the point was, it's all about Jesus. That's who we listen to. That's what we're doing here. And I want to tell you that Clare did actually leave the convent a couple of times. And one time was very important. So even though I said she had a tiny footprint in this world, she did big things. Assisi was under attack in 1224 by the Holy Roman Empire. Neither Holy Roman nor an empire, as they say, but was under attack because it's a wealthy place. And the soldiers were storming in, and she is carried out because she's ill. Most of her life she was very sick, probably because she never ate anything healthy. And they carried her out, and she's holding the Blessed Sacrament. They call it in Catholic churches, holding the sacrament in a pyx. And they carry her out, she holds it up, and the soldiers who are attacking are suddenly filled with terror, and they turn and run away. So Assisi was not captured. So tiny footprint, but big results. Just talking to Jesus. So that's what we should each do in our own lives. Talk to Jesus wherever he may be, because he's everywhere. And when you're driving your car, or you're defending your city from attack, or whatever you're doing, keep talking. Keep listening. I think that's our message for today. Amen.